In just a minute, we'll ask you to stand with us. We'll be led in prayer by Brother Terry Easley from Faith Baptist Church. And I'll ask you to remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray together. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us. Lord, thank you for our mayor. Thank you for the aldermen. Lord, thank you for the way that they serve our city. Lord, I thank you for our first responders tonight. Lord, thank you for their families. Lord, pray that you continue to watch over them, keep them safe each and every day. And Lord, we just pray that tonight that your will be done in everything. And Lord, I just thank you for these men who seek your face and Lord, seek to govern us well. And Lord, I just pray that you continue to bless them. Have your hand upon them, I pray. And it's in Jesus' name we ask. Amen.
Amen. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Terry. Our future meetings include the Planning Commission meeting on July 5th at 7 p.m., the Bartlett Station Commission, which normally would have met on July the 6th at 7:30 a.m., has been canceled for this month. The Bartlett City Beautiful Commission, July the 7th at 7 p.m., the Industrial Development Board, July the 7th at 7 p.m., and we have a work session in addition to our regular meeting on July the 12th for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and it will be at 5 o'clock in the annex. Traditionally, we have recognized any scouts that are with us. I don't see anybody here working on any of those badges. Tonight, since there are candidates that join us from time to time, our city attorney, Ed McKinney, would like to introduce one of those.
Board members, a lot of judges are running this year, and one of the judges who runs this year is a longtime friend of mine. He's the chancellor in Part 3 of Chancery Court. His name is Joe Day Jenkins. I've known him for over 20 years. He's an excellent chancellor, certainly deserves to be reelected, and I'd like him to briefly address the board tonight.
Thank you. Chancellor?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, gentlemen, aldermen, and thank you, Ed, for being so gracious in introducing me and saying such kind words. I am Joe Day Jenkins. I'm running for re-election, having been elected in 2016. I believe that we've had a good run so far. The Bar Association voted me Judge of the Year in 2021. A little bit about me. I am a United States Air Force veteran. I am the assistant pastor of Oak Grove Missionary Baptist Church right down the street here on Highway 64, and I live in the Bartlett community and have been living here for almost as long as I've been living, and I do love the community. I'm asking for your support in my re-election. Vote for me. Put my name and my card on your Facebook accounts and tell people about me. Tell people that there's a gentleman that lives in Bartlett that wants to serve the community even longer. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Chancellor. Also, I notice we have some other candidates, if they want to take about 2 minutes, any of them. If not, we'll move on then. Now, it's time for the official business of the day. First item on our agenda are the minutes from June the 14th.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Is there any discussion on the minutes? If not, will you go to your device and cast your vote? The minutes are approved by all four of the aldermen that are present tonight. Of course, you know that Alderman Elliott has resigned, and Vice Mayor Young had a trip that had been planned for a long time, and he's not able to be here tonight. Well, next up tonight is our interviews for the interim alderman's position 2, left vacant by Emily. And so our kind of our ground rules, gentlemen, is they get up to 5 minutes to speak to us. And then there'll be up to 10 minutes for us to give questions. I have 4 questions and I will ask all of them. And then after that, whatever time, depending upon how long their answer is, then any other questions that you all might have, we would want you to ask those. All right, and we're going to choose the order as we go by, there's a bowl down there with all their names in it, and city attorneys pick the first one.
Brandon Weiss.
We have them all in another room so that the last person gets the same benefit as the first person, and not a chance to hear the questions and form an idea of what they might want to say, which would give an unfair advantage to someone. Good evening, Brandon. If you will, give us your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes for your opening statement.
All right, good evening, Board of Mayor and Aldermen. My name is Brandon Wise. I am 6502 Maple Hill Farms Cove, Bartlett, Tennessee. Well, the reason why I'm running is the things I would like to look at are the qualifications, the desires, the ability to run. Why do I run a run? Well, I've had a passion and desire to help Bartlett for the last several years. I've ran before for a different office. I've always, whatever you want to call it, a passion, calling to help the community out. I would like to help out any way I can. I have a history of volunteering community service, doing more to help the community. I have the desire, the ability, and the time to serve on the board. A couple of the qualifications I have, college degree from UT Martin, political science, criminal justice. I worked for Shelby County government for the last 9.5 years. Probate court, the registrar's office, and now the archives office. I've sat in on several Bartlett Alderman meetings and a few business meetings. I have a passion for community service, all the way from when I was a youngster, the Boy Scouts, St. Jude Golf Classic, the UT Alumni co-president. I was the co-president of their board. I'm currently on the Bartlett Historical Society board member. I moved to Bartlett in approximately 88, 89. I started going to Chatillon, went to Bartlett High School, and graduated from UT Martin. Like I said, with a political science and criminal justice degree. Some of the issues, of course, the sewer issue is coming up. Our growth and development. We need smart growth. Bartlett's like any other town. Germantowns, Arlington, Lakeland are all facing different issues about growth while still keeping the small town feel. One of the things I love about Bartlett is the small town family feel. The fishing rodeo, the fireworks, festivals, the coffee, with the COP, the farmers market, things like that. They emphasize the small town feel as long as, but we still have a great community. We have great, the BPAC is great. We have great restaurants. Are we perfect? Not, no. Are there things we can improve on? Of course. We can infill a few spaces. We can. I would like to see. We have to have smart growth, smart development with greenery. I'd like to see greenery easements. Not just business after business after business after business. Of course. Do I have a timer?
There is a
1 minute
timer.
59 left.
Okay. Crime is always going to be an issue for every city in the area. What we can do, increase HOAs, their neighborhood watch grants for those. The neighborhood watches, fully fund our police and the fire departments, and our schools. So basically, just bottom line issue, I'm proud to live in Bartlett. I'm a Bartlett resident. Grew up in Bartlett, like I said, went to Bartlett High School. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions, any comments or concerns. I'd be happy to list recommendations, referrals from any of my previous jobs. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank
And
you.
That's about it.
Thank you, Brandon. I have 4 questions that I'm going to be asking to every candidate. First one is, and you've talked some about this, but specifically, why do you desire the interim position?
Well, I feel like it's as I said before, it's something I've always wanted to help Bartlett. This is my area, this is my hometown. This is where I spent the vast majority of my life. I feel like it would give me a feel about what the board is, what the board does. There's always a learning curve to any new position. I think I can be an asset to the board. I'm a doer. I believe we need doers, especially in this time of transition with everybody, people leaving, moving back and forth. So I believe I would be an asset to the board.
Okay. And of course, this question is obvious, but again, I'm going to ask it of everyone, and that is, do you plan to run for alderman? And if you are, do you think being selected interim would give you an advantage?
If the board frowns upon an interim running for the full term, then I would say I would go with the board's decision. So that would be no. If the board approves, it would be an obvious advantage. Any incumbent is an obvious advantage. So that would be an advantage. I would base it on the board's decision. If the board says no, then I would not consider running in November, no.
And what type of residential and/or commercial growth do you see yourself encouraging?
Well, we have to look at all aspects of the community. As I said before, every municipality around us has their own issues. Germantown is basically full. Arlington and Lakeland are dealing with going from the small town to the bigger city type transition. Go ahead, can you repeat your question one more time, sir?
What type of residential and/or commercial growth would you encourage?
Well, I would encourage growth. We have to communicate with the chamber, see what we can do to better help our businesses come in. Any branches, like if FedEx needed a branch in Bartlett, or Memphis, the pressing company needed a branch, closer to the downtown area. There's several issues we can look at. We can look at the downtown area across from Brad's. If any landowners are willing to sell to make infill some of that. It's always better to infill rather than to increase your tax rate. We want to try to see what areas we can do. We just have to monitor the whole area, basically.
Okay.
I mean, are we at a crisis level? I don't think so. I mean, every town, every municipality goes through a transition. I can name off 15 restaurants that are no longer in Memphis. So, I mean, I don't think we're anywhere close to being a crisis level, but.
I think you've already answered this, so that the others can get a shot at a question here. The final question would be your greatest strength that you would bring to the board. You want to just sum that up very briefly?
I guess the ability to communicate with my fellow aldermen. I believe I've shown a desire to want to be on the board, to do things, not just for the title only. I think we have an opportunity to, especially with, like I said before, with the turnover or the transition that we're going through. There's ability for us to, keep moving Bartlett forward, keep the small town feel, keep the, why do people want to move here? Small town feel, the great schools, the good roads, the good fire and police, things like that.
Okay. Now, to any of the aldermen that have a question? Anyone? All right. Thank you. Thank
Yes,
you for
sir.
your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you, board. Thank you, Alderman, Mayor,
Yes,
Vice
thank
Mayor,
you. Uh-huh.
CAO.
James Lamb.
James Lamb.
Chief Sons? Chief Sons? He's at the door. We have the thing off in the back. JJ, would you make sure that they know, that Brandon knows he can stay in here once he's finished, and the others once they've finished? Thank you. Mr. Lamb, if you would, give us your name and address for the record, and then you have 5 minutes for your opening statements. Then I will ask you 4 questions that we're asking all of the potential candidates, and then any other questions that someone might have. So,
All right, my name's Jim Lamb. I live at 4060 Bartlett Country Road. I've been a Bartlett resident since 1976. Someone asked me, what do you remember from back then? I said, well, I remember we bought our first residence on Court Street, and once we had kids, if you heard the sirens going off for the volunteer fire department, you ran outside and got your kids inside, because it was going to be a parade headed for the city hall. We now live out in a newer subdivision. Of course, I guess that subdivision is now 20-something years old, and I have served on several committees, Parks and Rec, currently serve on Planning Commission, and feel an obligation to this city. I think part of it was inherited. My dad, back in East Tennessee, was on the city school board, was a first county mayor that McMinn County ever had. And Betty says, why do you want to do this? And I said, well, I want to do this because I have an obligation to this city. When we moved here, there were probably 2,200 residents. Luckily, the realtor we used, he said, well, I know a small little town outside of Memphis that maybe you all ought to consider. So we bought that first house, and I now think there's 62,000 people. My dad said, if you're going to live in this place, and you ought to feel an obligation and a responsibility to help make it a better place. You realize my kids are now grown and live in East Tennessee, but where you raise your children is your hometown. You establish relationships and friends and so forth through your children, through schools. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to continue that. Don't have any interest in running for a position. I guess this is officially running for a position, but no interest in running an election, trying to get elected to a seat in the future. I'd help this city by filling out this particular post for 6 months or so.
You have kind of answered a couple of these questions, but I will just post them.
Okay.
Why do you desire the interim position, just briefly?
Briefly, to help fulfill and provide some, I hope, some leadership to this city. Have been exposed to a lot of what's going on through the Planning Commission, through Parks and Rec. I hear from a lot of folks. This world that we live in now is a social media world. There are groups, City of Bartlett groups on Facebook, and occasionally I read some of that, and most of the time don't respond to it. But sometimes when you get, it reaches a point that I respond that, look, I serve on the Planning Commission, no perks, no pay, nothing other than trying to make Bartlett a better place. Have you considered writing the mayor and volunteering to serve? And most of the time, that ends a conversation. So you, like I say, most of it I just ignore.
Again, you've already answered this, but do you plan to run for alderman?
I do not.
Right. And the next would be, what type of residential and commercial growth do you encourage?
Let me repeat the question again. I'm not sure I heard you.
What type of residential and/or commercial growth would you encourage? I'm off, I'm sorry.
I'm glad you turned it on. Now I can hear you.
Yeah, that's
Guessing
good.
what you're saying.
I didn't
Never
want
was
to,
good at reading lips.
yeah,
But,
well,
I've had folks ask me about, what about Union Depot? We all in Bartlett have been very lucky that we've got a top-notch fire department, top-notch police department, public service department, or it's all A number one. But we are in competition with our peer groups, which, I'm not sure that Collierville and Germantown are in peer groups, but we've got to keep those people. You can be a great place to work, but there also has to be revenue to fund that. And revenue for a city of this size comes from two places. It's either increase tax base, increase your taxes, or create a new tax base. Union Depot would do that. Now we got to find it and be smart about how we develop it. But if we don't, we're going to continue to see our competition for our great employees. So I support growth as long as it's done properly, both residential, commercial. It's an interesting to drive down, summer and drive down stage to see what's happening. It just irks me to see an empty storefront. If it's an empty storefront, there's no revenue coming in from that. So, anyway, all right.
all right. And your greatest strength that you would bring to the board?
The ability to study and make smart decisions based upon the information that's afforded to us. If you don't do that, then you're making a decision sometimes based on how you feel about something as opposed to what's a smart decision based upon the facts and figures that are provided to us by our staff.
Thank you, Jim. Others? Any other question? Well, Jim, thank you so much.
All righty, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Mandy Young.
Mandy Young.
Good evening, Mandy. If you would, give us your name and address for the record. And you have 5 minutes for your opening statement. And then we have up to 10 minutes for questions from the board. I have 4 questions that I'm asking all of the candidates, and there might be a follow-up question by an alderman. So the floor is yours.
Okay. Mandy Young, 5560 North Street, Bartlett, Tennessee, 38134. All right. So why should I be considered to fill in Emily Elliott's position? Well, I've lived in Bartlett since 1986. I've grown up through the school system back when Elmore Park was actually an elementary school. So yes, I just aged myself for all of you. And I've watched this city grow and expand. For the last 10 years, I've slowly gotten more and more involved in this beautiful city of mine that I call home. And this is just the next natural step for me. I've attended and graduated Leadership Bartlett class of 2019 and co-led the Leadership Bartlett class of 2020/2022. Currently, I am chair of the Planning and Commission and have served on the board for over 6 years now and absolutely enjoy being able to attend the meetings and voice opinions and concerns that will help make a difference in our city. I am also serving as co-chair on the Historic Board, and I'm learning even more about our city and ensuring that our neighbors in the Historic District keep that history as intact as possible. I have proven over the years to be an active and passionate civil citizen of Bartlett that looks to have the best of our city now and in the future. I have worked alongside most of you, or at least talked with you, and you know my passion for Bartlett. I would like to take this opportunity to complete Emily Elliott's vacancy and really immerse myself in the alderman position. This would allow me to explore if alderman is where my passion lies and if this is the best position in which I can serve Bartlett in the future. I hope that my reputation and love for Bartlett puts me in the good stance to be considered for this position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. Why do you desire this interim position?
Because my passion, of course, is with Bartlett. I'm not 100% sure if this is where my next step would be, so I would love to be able to take the next 6 months. It's a great opportunity to fill her shoes and learn more about aldermen before I decide if this is somewhere I would like to run and sit in permanently in the future for the city.
All right. So do you plan to run? And if you do you think being selected interim would give you an advantage?
Do I plan to run this year?
Yes.
No, I do not.
Okay. What type of residential and/or commercial growth would you encourage?
That's quite a large question. As you know, we have mixed use going on. I definitely think that is a plus for Bartlett. I do think we need more commercial growth. I was also part of the development team that got to meet with some people that came into town for the city of Bartlett to kind of look at our, not our square, but old school Bartlett, as I like to call it, because I live down there, to kind of revamp it. We haven't heard any more about that, so I would love to be able to revamp it and kind of build that up. You know, that's where our farmers market is, that's where the Bartlett High School is. We got to hear from some of our community about what they want to see, and they had some great ideas about, you know, building up the community, you know, building up this community and making it grow. And I think, you know, the passion is we have a bunch of people that are younger and they have families here, so I'd love to see those kind of businesses come that can support that kind of industry. So maybe something for the kids to do. You know, when my niece and nephew come in, I go to Memphis to take them to do activities that are when it's 100+ degrees heat, you know, something like that. So I would love to keep growing Bartlett even further, to keep, you know, all our business inside the city.
Okay. And what do you think your greatest strength would be to bring to the board?
Well, as you know, and I think most of you know, I am not afraid to voice my opinion. And I'm very, very passionate about this city. I've lived here most of my life, and I only want what's good for Bartlett. So I think that is definitely my strong point and would be very valuable for sitting in this position.
All right, Mandy, any other questions from any of the others? All right, Alderman?
Hey, I noticed, you know, going through the resumes that you're maybe the only person who really had a lot of civic stuff on there. Do you want to talk about some of the outside activities you do to help people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I didn't mention it here, I just kept it to City of Bartlett, but I have attended and gone through Leadership Memphis class as well and graduated it through COVID. We continued on, and then I am also on Leadership Memphis board to select different people. I read the essays and everything every year and help select some of the winners. I currently work for one of the largest nonprofits in Memphis and have for over 7 years and thoroughly enjoy it. And I also work at some of their major events throughout the year. I'm big into the St. Jude Marathon and kind of hold, lead some of that area for the St. Jude Marathon on volunteers area. And I've volunteered in the past with Black Girl Code throughout Memphis. I haven't done that lately, but I have in the past. Does that answer?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Any others? All right, thank you, Mandy.
All right, thank y'all.
Ed Brooks.
They'll tell her.
Ed Brooks.
Ed Brooks. While they're out, I'll tell on myself. Patty says since I got these hearing aids, I don't speak as loudly because I can hear myself, and it must be true. So I apologize for forgetting to turn the microphone. It sounded really loud to me. Yeah, that's right. Ed, if you'll come on down, and we'll ask you to give your name and address for the record. We'll also be giving you 5 minutes for your opening statement, and then we'll have a series of 4 questions that I'm asking all of the candidates, and then any follow-up questions that any of the aldermen have. So the floor is yours.
Okay. My name's Ed Brooks. My address is 3407 Harmon Cove, out here in Bartlett. My wife and I have lived out here for over 20 years now. We bought our first house after we got married, and we're still in the same house. We moved out here thinking we were moving into a suburb. We were born and raised in Memphis. And this has gone from being a suburb to a town all its own. And the school system, the infrastructure, everything like that has contributed to that. We're proud to be out here and consider it our home now, for sure, our hometown. From a professional level, I work for Spirit Architecture, so I've had a lot of experience with presenting to design boards and committees, quorum courts over in Arkansas. We do a lot of public and private development, working hand in hand with a lot of engineers, owners, being real conscious about budgets, and also making sure there's good design to meet the owner's needs. As far as community involvement goes, my wife's been a teacher at Bartlett Elementary for over 10 years now. Both our boys are in the school system and always have been. So we consider this our home, and I'd like to have an opportunity to contribute back to the city here.
All right, thank you, Ed. Why do you desire this interim position?
I would not run for an elected position at this point with my boys being at home still. It would take too much time away. But this 6-month position would give a chance to do some civic duty and to be an example in that way without having that long-term commitment that I just can't do right now.
So that kind of leads me to the next question, which you kind of answered, and that is, do you plan to run for alderman?
Not at this time, no, sir.
All right. And what type of residential or commercial growth would you encourage?
The infrastructure has to be in place first so that growth can happen. The school system and the positives in that are, we need more houses and residences for people to move into. It's pretty obvious that as soon as a house goes for sale, there's 15, 20 offers on it that day, and nothing lasts past the weekend. So there needs to be some development in that nature, and anything that is a small business, I'm in favor of.
Okay. And what do you think the greatest strength you would bring to the board is?
I would like to say that it's my design experience, over 20 years working with the same firm, and we've had a lot of experience with municipal projects particularly. And again, I said it earlier that we always try to be very conscious in making sure that the design intent is met, but being conscious of the budget. And also being aware that how quickly construction costs escalate. Over the last 10 years, you're looking at 5.5% increase a year. That's hard to keep up with.
Yeah,
so you got to make decisions, and you got to get them done.
The last year, it's been even more than that, right? Well, that's all I have. Alderman, any of you have a question for Ed? All right, Alderman?
I'll ask you the same question. I ask another one. I see you reference some of the civic things that you do for the people of Bartlett. Would you mind elaborating on that? Thank you.
Primarily with my wife being a long-term teacher at the elementary school, anything that I can to contribute and help her out in her work that she does there. Locally, it's just being involved, staying in touch with the people at the HOA for our particular neighborhood, and we try to do all of our local business and family things here in Bartlett. We've had the kids volunteer at the animal shelter, like everybody should, some things like that taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you.
Alderman Simmons?
You know, he's asking every question to the same people. Now, how many people have we done this with? And he asked them, "You gonna ride for this? You gonna run for this when time comes?" "Oh no, I ain't doing it." Well, there's several of them that's done it. So I just letting you know, I was looking at it. So go ahead. That's all I want to do.
Yes, sir. I can assure you, as long as my kids are at the house, that's my priority, is spending time with family right now. And my youngest is in 8th grade, so I've got a while still.
Thanks. Anyone else?
Well,
Yes.
I would
Alderman.
say, looking back in life, if you, a lot of people do not have the time to do this. You know, they've got families to raise, obligations, and whether a person runs or not, after serving, being elected to serve out Emily's term, that would just tell me that you had a person that was really sincere in wanting to be an alderman. So that's good and bad on that, you know. And everybody has had the opportunity to come down here, put their application in, or to speak. So me personally, I don't know why we even asked that question. I mean, but there is a question, not question you, Mayor, but to me, you know, that would be your business. You're wanting to kind of do something for the city. You're wanting to work. And if you'll come down here and do this with no intent to run, you know, good and dandy. But if you want to run when you get through, I think it ought to be your right. So thank you, and I'll shut up.
Well, I would just,
I know.
I would just say this, it's not a positive or a negative to answer that question. There is just a sense of interest and the fact that there's one of the questions, because you said you weren't going to run for alderman. I didn't read the second half of it, and it really kind of explains for some people whether or not you think there would be an advantage by being the interim. And we had somebody else answer that, and you can answer that if you'd like.
Personally, I think it would be a big advantage because you're running as a seated alderman at that point from the outside's point of view.
Right.
I think this is just a good opportunity to do a civic service for a finite amount of time.
Right. Thank you, Ed.
Yes, sir.
Thanks so much.
Thank you all. Thanks for the opportunity.
Paula Sedgwick.
Paula Sedgwick. Good evening, Paula. When you get here, we will ask you to give your name and address for the record. No rush. You will have up to 5 minutes to speak for your opening statement. You can use some or all of that 5 minutes. And then we have a series of 4 questions that we're asking all of the candidates and then there may be a follow-up that an alderman might have. So with that, the floor is yours.
Okay. I'm Paula Sedgwick, and I live at 6399 Quail Ridge Drive, 38135 in Bartlett. Gentlemen, where's Jack?
He's out of
Never
town.
I am a former alderman, was an alderman for 8 years, lost the last election by 60 votes. So through those 8 years, I worked for some of the most outstanding people on the planet here at City Hall. And it was my pleasure and my honor. I had the opportunity to be involved in the growth of Bartlett. And when I say that, I played a small role right after I got elected 8 years ago. I played a small role in the schools, but it was the most outstanding role in my life. And we worked hard, and we got those schools. We got those schools, and they're the most outstanding award-winning schools known to man, I might say. So it was such an honor for me. The things that I look back on in those 8 years, and that would be the highlight. But I loved going to the neighborhood watches, learning who the people are out in the neighborhoods. And always the policemen were always there, and the outstanding fire departments, and things that we actually did in the neighborhood. Had a friend visit me for about a week, about 4 weeks ago, and every time we would get out to go somewhere, she would say, "This is the cleanest place I've ever been." I said, "That's by design." we do that well here, and it's true. It got me to really looking, and it is the cleanest place you could ever go. Bartlett is so outstanding, and to be so close to 60,000, it's amazing when you really have time to slow down and look. And I have so many wonderful memories of it. I want to talk to you about my professional affiliations and community things that I've done that I'm very proud of, I'm a member of Ellendale Baptist Church, outstanding church, if I might say so. During this few years, I was appointed by the Governor, Bill Haslam, to the Tennessee Tom Bigby Waterway Development Authority Board, the Planning and Development Department. I was very proud of that, and I did that for 4 years. I went the juvenile court when I worked for the Bar Association, the attorneys and the judges. And when I did that, I talked with the juvenile court judge, and he talked me into applying and going to classes to be a court-appointed child advocate for CASA. And that's where you investigate child custody cases and abuse cases for juvenile court. I did do that. I did it for 2 years. It will tear your heart out. So after 2 years, I decided that I could not bear it, and went on. I completed Leadership Bartlett course and the police courses, which was fun. I love doing that. I was elected to a 4-year term as a state executive committee woman for the state of Tennessee. I also was elected as a vice chairman of the Shelby County Republican Party. I did that for 2 terms. And that was very educational, very exciting, and I'm glad I'm not doing it now during this period. I did the Lincoln Day for 6 years, and that was another whole story. I was very proud for the Memphis Magazine at that time. Appointed me, they did it every 2 years. They appointed 50 women in Memphis and Shelby County that make a difference. I was one of those women, and it just touched me beyond belief. I was so surprised by it. To be 50 women, a person who was appointed 50 women who make a difference in Memphis. I was awarded the Chairman's Award in the Republican Party. But one of the most interesting things that I have done is I was with the American Businesswomen Association, and I was nominated as Woman of the Year.
Paula, that's 5 minutes.
5 minutes? I could talk for 3 days.
I know.
Okay, so I'll just wrap it up.
Yeah.
I'm doing this because there's still a little kick in the old girl, and I still have such a passion for Bartlett.
Thank you. First question is, why do you desire this interim position?
Why do I decide? Because I don't want to run for office again, and because, and I can't feel Emily's, I mean, the woman was great, but I do feel I still have have the ability to give in this position, the one I know, and I it's for what, 6 months, and I feel like I can do it and do it well.
All right. And of course, you've just answered one of the questions, but I'll ask it because of the second part of it. Do you plan to run for alderman?
No.
And do you believe that anyone selected as interim, if they were to run, would have an advantage?
Do I feel that if you've selected, go ahead and say that again.
Whoever is selected as an interim, do you think they would have an advantage as a candidate for the position in November?
No, I really don't think they would have that much of an advantage.
Okay. And what type of residential and/or commercial growth do you want to see?
Residential completely, because everyone you talk to is looking for homes out here, and I'd like to see that, and I'd really like to see a lot of actually both, and pretty evenly split.
Okay. And then your greatest strength that you would bring to Bartlett, to the board?
My greatest strength, wow. My past abilities and my desire to see my home and see this community do what it's done since I was alderman and grow, grow, grow.
Okay. Any aldermen have any questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Pleasure.
So be sure that all of the candidates know to come back in. We're going to give some instructions. You'll have to, JJ, you'll have to pass that along.
Mayor, it looks like we're gonna have to have more than one vote.
Well, we're going to have a vote on the 12th. And
I
that's
mean,
part of what we're going to tell is how we're going to go about that.
Good candidates.
Yeah. All right, at this time, I'd ask our Chief Administrative Officer, Mark Brown, to go over our next steps as we move forward in filling this position.
Yes, thank you all the applicants for your interest in serving. We'll follow a process similar to the last vacancy that we filled at the meeting on July 12th. Each alderman and the mayor will be given a paper ballot with the name of the applicants on the ballot. They'll be instructed to circle two preferred candidates on the ballot. The ballots will be collected, and each of the nominees will be read, and the board from the sheets that the board member who nominated them. So we'll read each board member and who they nominated, and whichever receives the most votes, if there's only one, the board will vote to approve that applicant. If there's a tie in the number of people nominated, then those names will go into a bowl similar to this bowl, and we will pick the first name out of that bowl will be voted on by the board. And if that applicant receives enough votes, that will be the selection of the board. So, the majority of the vote, now, like, depends on how many people are there that night, but a majority of the board will.
Present.
Yes, present, so.
Right. And obviously, if the first person does not receive a majority, then the second person would be voted on. Or if it appears to be some kind of a tie, but, which is possible, because without Emily here, there would be 6 votes. So that is a possibility. All right, thank you. On now to the consent agenda. We have 9 items on consent. Is there anyone on this board that would like to remove any of those 9 items for separate discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, will you read them into the record, please?
Item 1, installation of 8 shade structures for Appling Ballfield Complex. Item 2, purchase of 7 2022 Dodge Charger police vehicles. Item 3, purchase and installation of emergency vehicle equipment for 7 police pursuit vehicles. Item 4, purchase of 7 Kenwood in-car mobile radios, handheld radios, and the associated license keys. Item 5, bid for solenoid valve for Quail Ridge Tank. Item 6, bid for annual paving marking. Item 7, grading contract for Union Depot. Item 8, bid for coffee supplies. Item 9, treasurer's report for May 2022.
You've heard the request.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. This requiring no debate. If you will, go to your device and cast your vote on the consent agenda. Consent agenda passes. First item under new business, Madam Clerk.
Bid for Brother Boulevard and Yale Road resurfacing project.
John Horn, Assistant Director of Engineering.
Good evening, Mayor, Mark, and Board. I'm here tonight to recommend a bid that we have received from Standard Construction Company for the paving of Brother Boulevard and Yale Road. Yeah, I've got a presentation picture there to where you can see. This is for the paving of Brother Boulevard from Stage Road or Highway 64 all the way to Germantown Parkway. When you come off of Stage, that's a 4-lane divided road. As you get near the intersection of Yale, it turns into a 5-lane. And also for the paving of Yale Road from Brother Boulevard all the way to Kirby Witten. That's a 5-lane. This is a TDOT funded project, and so the numbers that you've been presented, we will get reimbursed for 80% of these numbers. So Standard Construction's bid totals $3,514,158.60. And I'm recommending that plus a contingency, which allows us to deal with any unanticipated road repairs, which we typically have been encountering during construction. This totals $3,865,595.60 for Standard's bid. In addition to that, because this is a TDOT project, TDOT requires us to do what is called construction engineering inspection, and this is beyond what we would typically require if we were only using local funds. They require us to hire a consultant to do additional inspection and documentation. That totals $300,000. So the grand total for this, including Standard's bid, Fisher & Arnold's CEI, and the contingency, is $4,165,595.60. Our 20% match is $833,119. That's our 20% Bartlett match.
All right. Thank you. You've heard the request.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion, and it's properly seconded. Any discussion on this item?
I have a question.
All right.
John, I was looking through the tabulation sheet. I didn't see, is there any remilling in the tabulation sheet?
Is there what?
Any remilling required?
Yes, there is going to be milling in those areas. and repaving, yes.
Thank you.
All right? Anyone else? If not, we have a proper motion and second. If you go to your device and cast your vote on item 1 under new business. The bid is accepted by the board. Thank you. Madam Clerk, item 2.
Bid for traffic signal at intersection of Bartlett Boulevard and Ivanhoe Road.
Mr. Horn?
I'm also recommending a bid by McCrory Electric for the construction of this traffic signal at Bartlett Boulevard and Ivanhoe Road. I've got a picture of the layout. I've got another picture, Penny, if you don't mind going to the one. What you're seeing here is actually the signal intersection at Kirby Whitten and Egypt Central. I wanted just to show everyone this. This is what we call the newer design for traffic signals, which we call mast arms. It's the same type of signal that we have at Stage and Elmore Park, and that's what we're recommending to be installed at Bartlett Boulevard and at Ivanhoe. And so the next picture shows you kind of the bird's eye view. You can see the intersection of Ivanhoe and Bartlett Boulevard. You can also see the Farmers Market entrance and the Veterans Memorial. And so this has been proposed. It is, the traffic study showed this intersection to be warranted. That's a word that's typically used when a traffic signal is needed in an intersection. So that we use the word warranted. And it's you can warrant an intersection on several different types of criteria. It can be by crashes. This one meets the criteria for delays during a 4-hour peak. I think one of the many reasons why we need this intersection, if you've ever tried to leave the park during a sporting event, you understand how difficult it can be to make a left turn on the Bartlett Boulevard out of there. So this is going to help that. It's also, we have the Farmers Market has recently been constructed in that area, which will help left turns out of the Farmers Market and also out of Ivanhoe. So McCrory Electric's bid is for a total cost of $554,638.50 plus a $55,000 contingency. We would also like to request approving a contract by Pickering. This was the consulting firm that designed this signal for construction phase oversight. So this, in addition to the inspection, this is also an inspection of all the computer equipment that comes into place for this signal, which is a little bit above the expertise of our normal construction inspector. So I'd like to recommend this bid for award.
You heard the request.
Move to approve.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item?
Mayor, I have a question.
All right.
I'm very glad to see that type of design to go into a lot of our intersections. And my question is, will this one be painted like the one we did at Kirby Whitten and St. Elmo?
Yes, sir. That same hunter green, that dark color mast arms that we also see at Stage and Elmore Park.
Thank you.
All right. Any others? If not, we have a proper motion and second. If you will, go to your device and cast your vote. The bid for that traffic signal is accepted by the board. Thank you, John. Madam Clerk, item 3.
Resolution 20-22, a resolution to delete uncollectible accounts from ambulance customers' accounts receivable.
Dick Phoebus, Director of Finance.
This resolution asks the board to write off uncollectible accounts from the ambulance customers' accounts receivable. The resolution itself notes that last year in January of 21, we wrote off $423,000 of ambulance service fees, and this year we're asking you to write off $426,919.66. The majority of these accounts are from the difference between what we bill and what Medicare will allow to be paid, and there are some private pay amounts included in here that people just, for whatever reason, decide not to pay it, even though we have pretty good efforts to try to contact these people for payment. We still are unable to collect it. So I was asking to write off $426,919.66.
You've heard the resolution. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on this item?
Mayor, these bills are only the folks that we've transported.
I believe that's correct, yes.
Ambulance transports within the city limits.
Yep.
And
All
just
with it.
one more time, the difference between what we billed and what Medicare paid is this is what's the gap.
Majority of that is
Majority.
the difference, yes.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else? If not, we have a proper motion. Second, if you will, go to your device and cast your vote. The resolution 20-22 passes. Item 4, Madam Clerk.
Resolution 21-22, a resolution to delete uncollectible property taxes, interest, penalties, and associated costs from the City of Bartlett tax rolls.
Dick Phoebus.
This resolution asks you to write off $5,956.07 of uncollectible property taxes. They're notified by the trustee's office that they were deemed delinquent and determined to be uncollectible. We did some due diligence in our office recently, and some of the ones that with the most outstanding balance, we tried to contact them, but they're out of business and no longer able to contact them, so they're delinquent and uncollectible.
I believe most of these are businesses. All right, you've heard the request. What's the will?
Move it out.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? If not, you've got a proper motion and a second. If you go to your device and cast your vote, please. Resolution 21-22 passes. Item 5, Madam Clerk.
Resolution 22-22, a resolution to amend the City of Bartlett fiscal year 2023 American Rescue Plan Act Fund to provide for safety equipment as authorized in the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021.
Mr. Phoebus?
This resolution asks you to amend the ARPA fund to provide funding for a major piece of fire equipment. The cost is estimated to be $1.9 million, and that includes a truck and some accessories in order to get it operational, including hoses and nozzles. And I will say that this resolution, I got a memo from the fire chief and Tommy Gately today saying that their vendor estimates that the cost of the equipment is about 1.6, but if we wait to bid it out, depending on how long there's several months to get the bid in, it would go up to 1.7 million. It's just changing that fast. It's changing that fast. So we hope to get this approved and possibly use
ARPA.
Sourcewell. Sourcewell is one of the vendors that has already bid this equipment out, and we can get a price of about 1.6 using them.
And as I recall, it was 1.5 a couple of weeks ago, and we missed the price point, and it went 1.6 plus 300 and something thousand to fit it out. So we got 1.9, and we may have to come back. That's the bottom line, because things are changing. When you start fitting it out, there's always that possibility for change, and we would come back to you for that if necessary, but it is being paid for out of the ARPA funds that we just received for this second amount. And what does that leave us in the ARPA combined?
Well, we got about 3.2 million in there right now. So
And we'd be taking close to 2 million, so, all right, thank you. All right, what's the will?
Sounds like we don't need to delay this any further, and I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Get a move on.
Any discussion? If not, you've heard the motion, the resolution. We have a proper motion and second. If you will, go to your device and cast your vote. Resolution 22-22 passes. Madam Clerk, item 6.
Resolution 23-22, a resolution to amend the fiscal year 2022 Bartlett City Schools General Purpose School Fund, federal and state special revenue funds.
Mr. Phoebus.
This resolution comes to us from the school department. They're trying to true up their accounts at end of the year, end of the fiscal year. They did have some additional money from their ESSER funding. They're asking to amend their budget by $24 million. $17 million of that comes from the ESSER funding.
You've heard the request.
Move it out.
Have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion on this resolution? If not, you have a proper motion and second. If you would, please go to your device and cast your vote. Resolution 23-22 passes. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Phoebus.
gentlemen.
That is the conclusion of our regular agenda. We do allow, by tradition, a period of open discussion where anyone can speak to this board on any matter for up to 3 minutes. Before we go to the public, is there anyone on the board that has anything they need to say, want to say? If not, any of our directors have anything? All right. So we will then go to the audience. If you'll come forward, give us your name and address for the record. And remember that we will have you on a timer, and we'll ask you hopefully to be finished before that. If not, I'll have to ask you to stop. But whoever would like to speak to us should come forward at this time. If you would pull that down.
Just a little bit.
Yes,
Like
thank
this?
you.
Okay. All right. I am Wita Shepherd. I've lived at 6308 Briar Gate since 1984 with a reasonable feeling of safety and security that have encouraged me to create a private sanctuary in my backyard, which I have until recently been able to enjoy both day and night. I've invested thousands of dollars and much sweat equity creating my private sanctuary. Recently, right before sunset, I walked to the corner where my she shed, swing, azaleas, roses, and other delightful things are located without a thought of reasonable expectation of privacy, not thinking about light trespass or light pollution. But when I turned to sit in my swing, a glaring beam from my neighbor's new LED floodlight hit me directly. Imagine having high beam LED car lights positioned on the soffit of your neighbor's house, literally pointing directly into your backyard. After dark, the blaze of my neighbors, as one friend described it, prison yard lights, obliterates my line of vision in most of my backyard. I've contacted my neighbor, invited her to come to my yard to observe it from my perspective. I've sent her photographs, all to no avail. But I've learned that cameras are connected to her LED lights, her LED floodlights, which raise concerns of possible videotaping not only of me, but the children playing in connecting yards. I've contacted City Code, Bartlett Police, and the mayor's office. Today, in 2 separate phone conversations, representatives from Bartlett City encouraged me to hire a lawyer. My only other solution is to build an 8-foot privacy fence, which ironically will have to be built to meet city code and will cost hundreds more than a 6-foot fence, as well as impact natural sunlight and airflow onto my property. Attorney Brian Farkas states on NOLA.com, like noisiness, light pollution is recognized as a nuisance by courts in most parts of the United States. A nuisance is a type of conduct that disturbs a neighbor's use or enjoyment of property. Gentlemen, one neighbor's right to put up lights and cameras should not trump another's right to use and enjoy their property. nor should our children be put at risk of being videotaped by a neighbor's security camera while playing in the privacy of a backyard because you have not established ordinances to protect them. The LED floodlights and cameras are going up daily. I respectfully ask you to take action by establishing ordinances addressing the nuisance and invasion of privacy that they are creating.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. We certainly will look into that. It is my understanding that at this point, it would be a civil matter between you and your neighbor, as you were told earlier today. But we certainly will consider what the options are. And once we have that laid out, then we'll see the next move, the next step.
As a former teacher, I have spent my life thinking about the future. I can build a fence. I'm going to build a fence. I already have the design picked up. But this is going to be continuing. This is not going to be the only issue. And so it needs to be taken care of if we possibly can, because $600 extra for a fence, then another $600 for a letter from a lawyer, that's $1,200 right there. Everybody in Bartlett's not going to be able to afford it. So I hope that y'all do everything you possibly can do, as other communities have already done. Thank you.
All right, next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. David Reeves, 4535 Merlin's Woods. Excellent discussion tonight about the appointment for Emily's seat, Alderman Elliott. All the candidates are great, and I applaud them for stepping up to serve, even in the interim. But I was excited to see Ed Brooks. And I'm surprised that he actually pulled in, but I'm really excited. Ed Brooks is a fantastic citizen, smart, cerebral. I think he would make a great alderman in the interim. But we need people like Ed Brooks. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of us, we get in and we serve and we run and we serve and we run and we serve and we run year over year. But guys like Ed Brooks, who haven't served, hadn't really had that opportunity. And I think we need people like Ed Brooks serving. Like I said, everybody who stepped up, great people, but I know Ed, and I think he would do a fantastic job, even in the interim. I know he'll keep his word as well. But in the future, the opportunity for him to serve in greater capacity, given his knowledge and his understanding of architectural design and some of the issues that we have when we're building businesses here, and some of the impediments and things that we need to work through, Ed would be a great asset, even just for 6 months and into the future. So I thought, just sitting here thinking about it and listening to everybody speak, that great opportunity to appoint someone who's not really served in any Bartlett roles, and this would be a perfect place for him to get involved. So everybody else is great, but Ed would be great for you guys. So thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank you, David. Anyone else? Seeing no one else seeking to be recognized, this is the conclusion of our business. This meeting stands adjourned.